Touch your face. Feel that? Solid, real, undeniably yours. Buddha said that sensation, that certainty, that sense of, I'm here, all of it, constructed, temporary, not yours. Not philosophy. Neuroscience now confirms it. The body you had at breakfast is already gone. Your intestinal lining replaces itself every few days, your skin every few weeks, most cells in constant flux. You're not the same body that started watching this video. So which body is you? 2,500 years ago, sitting under a tree, the Buddha made a discovery that science is only now beginning to confirm. What you call you isn't a thing at all. It's 5 temporary processes working together, creating the most convincing illusion in existence. No souls, no permanent self, no unchanging core. 5 aggregate, mistaken for a person. And understanding this, truly understanding this, changes everything. Your suffering, your anxiety, your endless attempts to defend and improve yourself, all based on a fundamental mistake. So what are these 5 aggregates? How do they create the illusion of self? And what happens when you see through it? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll see yourself completely differently. Before we begin, a quick note. This video goes deeper than usual. It's a full exploration of one of Buddhism's most profound insights. Many of you in the comments asked for a complete breakdown of the 5 aggregates. Not just theory, but practice. So that's what this is. Think of it as a 1-hour journey through the Buddha's most revolutionary discovery, what you call you. Deer Park, Varanasi, India. The year 528 BCE. 5 former companions sit before a newly enlightened teacher. They're skeptical. He looks different somehow, calmer, more present. He's about to tell them something that will shatter their reality. For 6 years, Siddhartha searched for answers. He tried every spiritual practice, pushed his body to the edge of death. Nothing worked. So he sat beneath a Bodhi tree and turned his attention inward with surgical precision. He examined his own mind, looking for the self everyone assumes exists. And what he discovered? He couldn't find it. He looked at his body changing every moment, cells dying and being born. Not the self. He observed sensations, pleasant and unpleasant, arising and passing. Not the self. He watched perceptions, mind labeling and interpreting everything. Not the self. He saw thoughts and emotions appearing from nowhere, disappearing into nothing. Not the self. He examined awareness itself and flickering on and off, dependent on conditions. Not the self. So where is this I that everyone believes in? Buddha's answer: revolutionary then. Revolutionary now. There isn't one. What exists, what you actually are, is 5 temporary processes working together. The 5 aggregates, in Pali, Panchakhanda, or in Sanskrit, Skandhas, meaning 5 heaps or 5 groups, collections of temporary phenomena, not a unified self. Rupa, form, Vedana, feeling, Sanya, perception, Sankhara, mental formations, Vijnana, consciousness. No permanent essence hiding beneath them, no soul observing them, no unchanging core holding them together. 5 processes creating the convincing appearance of a unified self. This teaching shattered the prevailing view. In Buddha's time, every school of thought assumed a permanent self, Ātman, soul, essence. Buddha was the first in India to center a full path on systematically denying a permanent self. Now, You might be thinking this is interesting philosophy, but why does this matter? Every moment of suffering in your life comes from identifying with these aggregates. Every anxiety, every fear, every desperate attempt to protect and improve yourself, based on the mistaken belief that you are these temporary processes. Remember our video on Anatta, the Buddhist teaching of not-self? We explored what it means to have no permanent essence. Today we're going deeper. We're examining how Buddha arrived at that conclusion by breaking down exactly what you are and what you're not. This teaching, the Anattalakkhana Sutta, the discourse on the not-self characteristic, was Buddha's second teaching after enlightenment, and upon hearing it, all 5 ascetics achieved stream entry, the first stage of awakening when a practitioner sees the truth of not-self directly and can never be reborn in lower realms. Within centuries, this teaching spread across Asia. Within millennia, it influenced philosophy, psychology, neuroscience, because it names something everyone senses but can't articulate: the fundamental groundlessness of self. By seeing these 5 aggregates clearly, you gain the key to liberation, because you can't suffer over losing something that was never yours. You can't defend something that doesn't exist. You can't perfect something that's already empty. So let's examine these 5 aggregates one by one and see if we can find you anywhere inside them. We begin with the most obvious, the most solid, the thing you're most certain is you, your body. But is it? The body you had 7 years ago is completely gone. Most cells replaced, structures transformed, matter recycled. The body you have now is already in the process of disappearing. So, which body is you? This is Rupa, the first aggregate, form. In Pali, Rupa denotes physical matter. Your body, your sense organs, the material world you interact with. And Buddha's observation, startling in its simplicity: form is temporary, constantly changing, utterly unreliable, as a foundation for self. Let's understand the context. Ancient India was obsessed with questions of existence. Some philosophers, the Carvaka materialists, claimed everything was material, nothing else existed. Others, the Vedantic idealists, said matter was illusion, only consciousness was real. Buddha walked the middle way. Yes, form exists, but it's not permanent, not controllable, not self. Your body operates according to natural laws, aging, decaying, responding to conditions. You didn't design it. You can't stop its changes. You can't prevent its eventual dissolution. In the Anattalakkhaṇa Sutta, Buddha states directly, form is not self. If form were self, form would not lead to affliction. And one could command of form, let my form be thus. Let my form not be thus. But because form is not self, form leads to affliction. And none can command of form, let my form be thus. Let my form not be thus. If the body were truly you, you would have complete control, but you don't. And yet, look at how we treat the body. Billions of dollars spent every year on cosmetic surgery, filters, photo editing apps. Why? Because we identify with a form that's constantly changing. We see wrinkles appearing and feel personally attacked. We watch the body age and think, I'm dying. Social media amplifies this delusion 1,000 times over. Every selfie, every filter, every carefully posed image, screaming the same desperate message: this body is me. The body image epidemic, the anxiety around aging, the obsession with appearance, all symptoms of the same fundamental mistake: clinging to form, mistaking it for self. Now, Buddhism isn't saying the body doesn't matter. Care for it. Maintain it. Treat it with respect. But understand what it actually is: a temporary collection of elements, borrowed from the earth, already in the process of returning. Buddhist meditation practice directly addresses this through body scanning, one of the oldest techniques. You sit and systematically observe sensations throughout the body. Pressure where you sit, temperature of air, tingling in hands. Don't get caught in conceptual elaboration. Simply observe. And as you observe, you repeat the ancient formula. This is not mine. This is not me. This is not myself. Sound abstract? Modern neuroscience makes it concrete. Proprioception, your sense of having a body, is created by your brain. It's a construct, a simulation, neural processing, creating the feeling of embodiment. Phantom limb syndrome proves this dramatically. People feel sensations, even pain, in limbs that no longer exist. The brain creates body sensations that aren't there. Your physical form, the thing you think is most solid and real, is partially a neural construct. So the question Buddha asked, if your body is constantly changing, which version is the real you? The infant body, the teenage body, the middle-aged body, the elderly body? They're all different, composed of different cells, different structures, different capabilities. Which one is you? All of them? None of them? The truth Buddha discovered: the body was never yours to begin with. It's on loan, temporary, already in the process of returning to elements. Dust to dust, as another tradition says. Understanding this, truly understanding this, brings unexpected freedom. You can care for the body without obsessing over it. You can accept changes without existential crisis. You can appreciate its functions without identifying as the form. Let that settle for a moment. Rupa, the first aggregate, necessary, functional, temporary, but not you, not yours, not permanent. So form provides the physical basis, but what activates it? What makes you move toward or away from experiences? That's where feeling enters. Stop. At this moment, what are you feeling? Not emotion deeper than that. Is this moment pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral? You probably weren't paying attention. But that feeling, the one you weren't noticing, decided what you'll think next. This is Vedana, the second aggregate, feeling, not emotions. That comes later, but the raw sensation of pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Every moment as your senses contact the world, feelings arise automatically. See something beautiful, pleasant feeling. Hear something irritating, unpleasant feeling. Notice something irrelevant, neutral feeling. Sounds simple, almost too simple to matter. But Buddha identified this as the critical link in the chain of suffering. The mechanism is precise. Feeling arises automatically, without your choice. Pleasant feeling triggers craving. You want more. Unpleasant feeling triggers aversion. You want it gone. Neutral feeling triggers ignorance. You ignore it, looking for something more interesting. And this reaction, this automatic response to feeling, creates your entire experience of suffering. This connects directly to what we explored in our dependent origination video, where we saw how suffering arises through a chain of causes. Feeling is one of the crucial links in that chain. Contact leads to feeling. Feeling leads to craving. Craving leads to clinging. Clinging leads to suffering. Break the chain at feeling, and everything changes. Most people live on complete autopilot. Pleasant appears, grab it. Unpleasant appears, push it away. Neutral appears, scroll past it, over and over. Millions of times. Your entire life. You're being controlled by the second aggregate, and you don't even know it. Platforms informed by persuasive tech research are engineered to hook Vedana, likes, comments, infinite scroll. So the average person spends hours a day chasing micro-pleasures. The result? Anxiety, addiction, restlessness, burnout, the diseases of modern civilization, all rooted in unconscious reaction to the second aggregate. What Buddha discovered 2,500 years ago, the feeling itself isn't the problem. Pleasant feelings aren't bad. Unpleasant feelings aren't bad. Neutral feelings aren't bad. They're automatic, natural, part of existence. The problem is the automatic reaction, the compulsive grasping at pleasant, the desperate pushing away of unpleasant. That reaction, that's where suffering enters. Buddha taught a famous metaphor, the story of the two arrows. In the Anattalakkhaṇa Sutta, he explained, the uninstructed worldling feels pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling, neutral feeling. The instructed noble disciple also feels these three. What then is the distinction? When touched by unpleasant feeling, the worldling sorrows, grieves, and laments. He feels two pains, physical and mental, like a man struck by one arrow, then struck by a second, feeling the pain of two arrows. Someone insults you, unpleasant feeling arises, that's the first arrow. Then your mind adds, they shouldn't have said that. I'm so angry. I'll show them. I'm a victim. That's the second arrow, and you shot it yourself. The unpleasant feeling happened automatically, it couldn't be controlled. The suffering happened because you reacted, because you added the story, because you identified with the feeling. Vipassana meditation, insight meditation, one of Buddha's core practices, trains you to observe feelings without reacting. Sensation arises. You note it. Pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. Don't chase it. Don't push it away. Don't ignore it. Observe. And practitioners discover something profound. Feelings arise and feelings pass. That pleasant feeling you were grasping at, already gone. That unpleasant feeling you were avoiding, already changing. Buddha compared feelings to bubbles on water, rising and bursting. All feelings, impermanent, fleeting, not worth building your life around. Not you, not yours, not permanent. At this moment, as you're hearing this, the feeling controlling you isn't chosen by you. It arose from conditions, and you're being puppeteered by Vedana without ever knowing it. Consider this possibility. Pleasant could arise without desperate grasping. Unpleasant could arise without panicked avoidance. You could experience sensations without being enslaved by them. That's the freedom Buddha discovered, not eliminating feelings. That's impossible while you're alive. But seeing them clearly, understanding their nature, refusing to be enslaved. Feelings arise, but how do you know what you're feeling? How does raw sensation become, this is pleasant or this is a threat? That's where perception takes over. Everything you've ever seen, you haven't actually seen. Your brain shows you predictions, constructions, interpretations. Direct perception, the thing you're most certain of, has never happened. Not once. Consider this. This is Sanya, the third aggregate. Perception. The process by which your mind labels, categorizes, and interprets raw sensory data. The mechanism works like this. Your senses contact something. Light hits your eyes. Sound hits your ears. Raw data arrives, meaningless, uninterpreted. Then perception kicks in. That's a tree. That's dangerous. That's mine. Instant labels, instant categories, instant stories. And the critical point, you think you're seeing reality. You're not. You're seeing your mind's interpretation of reality. And everyone's interpretation is different. Remember the dress, the image that broke the internet a few years ago? Some people saw blue and black, absolutely certain, no doubt. Other people saw white and gold, equally certain, equally convinced. Same image, different perceptions. Who was right? Both and neither. The image existed, but blue and white exist only in perception. Your brain constructs color based on assumptions about lighting. Different assumptions, different perceptions, different realities. And if something as simple as color is constructed by perception, what about everything else? Your entire experience of reality, filtered through this third aggregate. Nothing perceived directly, everything interpreted, categorized, labeled. Buddhist psychology explains this precisely. Past experiences create mental templates, samskaras, karmic impressions that condition future perception. These templates sit in your mind, waiting. New sensory data arrives and your mind matches it against existing templates. This is like that time when this person reminds me of, this situation means. You're not experiencing now, you're experiencing the past projected onto now. Remember our video on karma. Your perceptions are shaped by past karmic imprints. You see through the lens of your history, your culture, your conditioning. Everyone walking around with different lenses, perceiving different realities. And the dangerous part, nobody realizes they're wearing lenses. Everyone thinks they see objective truth. Now add technology. Social media feeds show you content based on your existing perceptions. Algorithms detect your biases, your preferences, your interpretations, then feed you more of the same. Your perception becomes a closed loop, an echo chamber, a bubble of reinforced beliefs. You perceive the world through increasingly narrow filters, and the algorithm makes sure you never see outside your bubble. Reality becomes what your aggregate of perception constructs, everyone trapped in their own perceptual prison, thinking they see truth, seeing only their own mind's creation. Understanding this, truly understanding this, changes everything. Suddenly, compassion becomes possible, not because you agree with them, because you understand they're experiencing the inevitable result of their perceptual aggregate. The liberation Buddha taught, recognize perception as construction, not reality. Practice, bear attention, seeing before labeling. Raw sensory data arrives, and you pause before the mind adds its story. What's actually here, before interpretation? What am I adding to direct experience? In the Dhammapada, the first verse captures this perfectly. Mind precedes all phenomena. Mind is their chief. They are mind-made. Perception creates your reality. Zen masters train this rigorously. A student asks, "What is Buddha?" Master responds, "Don't know." Not claiming ignorance, pointing to the space before perception labels everything. Before Buddha became a concept, an image, a set of associations. What's actually here? Don't know. Modern neuroscience confirms Buddha's insight through predictive processing theory. Neuroscientist Carl Friston's work shows that your brain doesn't passively receive sensory data. It actively predicts what should be there, based on past patterns. then checks incoming data against predictions. Most of what you see is actually prediction, not direct observation. Your brain shows you what it expects, not what's there. Optical illusions prove this. Your brain predicts one thing, reality delivers another. The system breaks down. Suddenly you see the prediction for what it is, a construction. But the disturbing aspect, if illusions reveal the prediction, what about everything else? What about your perception at this moment, watching this video, hearing these words? How much is direct observation? How much is prediction, interpretation, construction? Buddha's answer: all of it. You've never seen reality, not once, not ever. Every single thing you've perceived has been your mind's construction. Consensus reality is collective hallucination. Everything you've ever perceived has been filtered through this aggregate. Every certainty you hold, every obvious truth, every "I know what I saw," all perception, not reality. Constructed, not discovered. And the most radical part, once you see this, you can't unsee it. Arguments lose their charge, because you recognize competing perceptions. Certainty becomes suspect, because you know it's constructed. Other people's views become interesting, because you understand they're perceiving differently. Not truth versus lies, perception versus perception. Every perspective partial, every view limited, every interpretation conditional. Understanding Sanya, the third aggregate, brings unexpected humility, and humility, Buddha taught, is the beginning of wisdom. Let's pause here. 3 aggregates examined: Rupa, the changing body; Vedana, the sensations controlling your reactions; Sanya, the perceptions constructing reality. Already, you can see how the illusion forms. 2 more aggregates remain. Then we'll see how all 5 work together to create the greatest magic trick in existence. Perception labels reality. But what happens next? What turns perception into action? Mental formations. And they're running your life at this moment. Consider this. Why do you keep checking your phone? Why does that one person's voice make you tense before they even speak? Why does criticism sting for days while compliments vanish in seconds? You're not weak. You're not broken. You don't lack willpower. You're experiencing sankhara, the 4th aggregate. Mental formations. And this might be the most important aggregate to understand, because this is where change becomes possible. Sankhara includes everything, all mental activities except feeling and perception. Your automatic behaviors, your urges, your impulses, your habits, your intentions, your decisions, your reactions, your personality traits. Everything that makes you you, everything you think defines your character. All mental formations arising from conditions, not chosen, not permanent. The phone check. You're working, focused, making progress. Suddenly, without deciding to, your hand reaches for your phone. You pick it up, unlock it, start scrolling. 5 minutes later, you snap out of it. Wait, why did I do that? That's a mental formation conditioned over thousands of repetitions. Boredom arises, formation activates, hand reaches, phone appears. You didn't choose it. It happened through you. This is what you're actually dealing with, not character flaws, not personal failures. Mental formations, conditioned patterns, automatic responses. Now the interesting part, your entire personality, everything you think is essentially you, is collections of mental formations. I'm an introvert, a pattern of formations around social situations. Small talk appears. Discomfort formation activates. Withdrawal behavior follows. Repeat 10,000 times, and it feels like who you are. But it's not who you are, it's a pattern, a formation, conditioned, changeable. I'm a morning person. Habitual formations around sleep and energy. I have a short temper. Strong reactive formations around frustration. I'm creative. Formations that link novelty with pleasure and approach. None of these are fixed. None of these are essence, all patterns, all formations, all conditional. And modern culture's obsession with personality tests reveals this perfectly. MBTI, Enneagram, Big Five. Why the desperate need to categorize ourselves? Because we want to know who we are. We want a label, a category, a defined identity. Buddhist answer: you're describing temporary mental formations. The patterns are real, accurate for now, but they're not eternal essence. They're current configuration. I'm an INFJ describes your current formations, but formations change with conditions, new experiences, new environment, new practice. The formations shift. The danger: these tests solidify fluid formations into fixed identity. I'm a type 8 becomes, this is my nature. You take a temporary pattern, give it a permanent label, lock yourself in. Buddhism offers a different approach, not I am socially anxious, but strong anxiety formations appear around social situations. See the difference? One is identity, fixed, permanent. The other is description, conditional, changeable. Formations create karma, and karma reinforces formations, and formations create more karma. The loop tightens until patterns feel like destiny. Example: social anxiety develops, awkward interaction happens, unpleasant feeling arises, mind creates formation. Social situations equal danger. Next social situation, formation activates, anxiety appears automatically. You avoid the situation. Formation strengthens through avoidance. Next time, anxiety stronger, avoidance more compelling. Loop continues, getting tighter, getting stronger. Eventually, I am socially anxious, but you're not. You have strong anxiety formations around social situations. Different statement, different reality, different possibility. You're not broken. You have strong unwholesome formations. You're not bad at relationships. You have defensive formations. You're not lazy. You have formations that prioritize immediate comfort over long-term benefit. This changes everything because formations, unlike essential nature, can be changed. The Abhidhamma, the third basket of Buddhist scriptures, catalogs 52 mental factors, 52 types of formations. Wholesome formations, compassion, patience, generosity, wisdom, loving kindness. Unwholesome formations, greed, hatred, delusion, jealousy, resentment, arrogance. Neutral formations, attention, concentration, memory, basic habits. Not good or bad in themselves, but they shape experience, create karma, determine outcomes. The practice: weaken unwholesome formations, strengthen wholesome ones, not through force, through observation. This is the engine behind samsara, the cycle of rebirth we explored in that video. Mental formations keep the wheel turning, creating the karmic momentum that carries consciousness from life to life. Meditation reveals formations as they arise. You're sitting, observing breath. Suddenly, urge to check phone. There it is, the formation, appearing, visible, and the key moment, you can observe the urge without obeying it. Feel the impulse. Notice the pull. And sit still. Formation appeared, but you didn't act. Every time you do this, the formation weakens slightly. Break the link between formation and action, and the pattern begins to dissolve. Anger formation, you're meditating. Someone makes noise. Irritation arises. Formation activates. Urge to react appears. You observe it. Note it. Anger formation, and return to breath. Formation appeared, you saw it, you didn't obey it. Slowly, gradually, over time, the automatic quality weakens. Space opens between formation and response. That space, Buddha taught, is freedom. If you're working with trauma or addiction, combine this observation practice with qualified professional support. The Aggregates teaching is a framework for understanding, not a replacement for proper care. That voice in your head saying, "This is who I am," that's a formation. The identity claiming to be permanent is itself impermanent. The self defending itself doesn't exist. Every habit you can't break, every reaction you regret, every "that's who I am" story, mental formations, not you, not yours, not permanent. They arose through conditions, change the conditions, they dissolve. Formations drive behavior, but what knows the formations are happening? What's aware of all this? Let's examine consciousness itself. You're aware at this moment. You know you're aware, and you're aware that you're aware that you're aware. You can keep going. Awareness watching awareness watching awareness, the infinite regress that Buddhists call the mirror reflecting the mirror. Where does it end? Buddha's answer will disturb you. This is vijnana, the fifth aggregate, consciousness. And understanding what it actually is destroys the last hiding place of the self. Consciousness, the knowing faculty, awareness itself. Buddhist psychology identifies 6 types. Eye consciousness, knowing through sight. Ear consciousness, knowing through sound. Nose consciousness, knowing through smell. Tongue consciousness, knowing through taste. Body consciousness, knowing through touch. Mind consciousness, knowing through thought. 6 distinct types, all doing the same thing, knowing their objects. Now the critical point, the thing that separates Buddhist understanding from almost everything else. Consciousness is not a permanent soul, not an unchanging observer, not an eternal witness watching the movie of your life. It's an aggregate, like the other 4, temporary, conditioned, impermanent. This bothers people because we have this deep intuition. Everything changes, but the awareness of change, that's constant. That's me. The spiritual seeker's favorite refuge, I am the awareness observing my thoughts. I am the consciousness witnessing experience. I am the eternal observer. Buddha's response: no, you're not. Because even consciousness is conditioned and impermanent. No witness exists separate from what's witnessed. Consciousness always depends on conditions, always arises from causes. If consciousness were permanent self, it wouldn't disappear. If consciousness were essential, you couldn't lose it. But you do, regularly, every night, between thoughts, in gaps of attention. Consciousness is not continuous, it's discrete, flickering, arising and passing, moment by moment, like frames in a movie creating the illusion of continuous flow. But examine closely, and you see the flicker. Ancient debates about this. Hindu philosophy taught Ātman, eternal consciousness, unchanging witness, permanent self. Buddhist philosophy challenged this directly. Buddha's argument in the Anattalakkhaṇa Sutta. If consciousness were self, you could control it. But can you? Can you decide what appears in consciousness? Can you prevent unpleasant awareness from arising? Can you force pleasant awareness to stay? No. Consciousness arises dependent on conditions, passes when conditions change, not controllable, therefore not self. If consciousness were self, it wouldn't cause suffering, but it does. Painful awareness, unwanted thoughts, disturbing memories, traumatic flashbacks. If consciousness were truly yours, truly you, why would it torture you? Remember our video, Buddhism versus Hinduism. We covered this debate in depth, the core difference between these traditions, Hindu Ātman versus Buddhist Anatta, permanent consciousness versus impermanent aggregates. One says consciousness is the self, the other says consciousness is another process, mistaken for self. Now, modern questions make this even more interesting. Can AI become conscious? Buddhist response: you're asking the wrong question. Consciousness is a process arising from conditions. If the conditions are present, consciousness arises. No magic threshold, no soul required. No single region produces consciousness. It appears to be an emergent property, arising from complex interactions, dependent on conditions. The meditation practice. Observing consciousness itself sounds abstract, but it's direct. You're sitting, watching breath. Suddenly you notice awareness of breath. That's consciousness appearing, knowing its object. Watch closely. Breath is object, consciousness knowing breath. They arise together, inseparable. No consciousness without object. No object without consciousness to know it. They co-arise, dependent, conditional. Now breath ends, attention shifts, sound appears, ear consciousness arises, knowing sound, previous consciousness, gone. New consciousness appeared. You're watching consciousness arise and cease, moment to moment, each type distinct, each moment new, all temporary, and what dissolves the final illusion. If you're observing consciousness, what's doing the observing? Another consciousness, observing the first consciousness. And what observes that consciousness? Another one, and that one another. Infinite regress. Or maybe there's no separate observer at all. Maybe the observer is another momentary consciousness, arising and passing, mistaken for permanent witness. Maybe watching is another process, not a watcher. Events happening, no one experiencing them. Consciousness appearing, no one being conscious. The last place you thought you could hide. I am awareness, even that's empty. The observer is observed. The watcher is watched. Infinite regress, or no one there at all. The thing you thought was most certainly you, your awareness at your consciousness, arising and passing moment by moment, dependent on conditions, empty of inherent existence. No one home, no permanent observer, no eternal awareness. Consciousness, the fifth aggregate, revealed as another temporary process. Not you, not yours, not permanent. Where is the you? Not in form, changing every moment. Not in feeling, arising and passing. Not in perception, conditioned interpretations. Not in formations, automatic patterns. Not in consciousness, flickering, conditional, temporary. Five aggregates, examined, deconstructed, understood, and no self found anywhere. 5 aggregates, each examined, each empty of self, but how do they work together to create such a convincing illusion? That's what we need to see. Form gives you a body, Vedana motivates movement, Sanya interprets reality, Sankhara generates action, Vijnana knows it all. 5 processes, 5 temporary events, and somehow this becomes you, the greatest magic trick ever performed. What's actually happening? The aggregates don't exist separately. They co-arise, interdependent, creating experience. Form provides the stage, the body, the material basis. Feeling motivates. Pleasant pulls you forward. Unpleasant pushes you back. Perception interprets, labels, creates meaning from raw data. Formations generate action, habits, patterns, personality. Consciousness knows. Awareness appears. Experience happens. All 5 working together, every moment, creating the appearance of a unified self. Like instruments in an orchestra, each playing its part. Together creating a symphony. But consider this. Where is the symphony? Is it in the violin, the drums, the piano? Remove any instrument. Symphony changes, but symphony remains. So the symphony isn't any particular instrument. Is it all instruments together? But examine all instruments and you find wood, metal, strings, air. No symphony substance. The symphony is a concept, a useful designation, applied to instruments playing together. Conventional truth. The symphony exists. Ultimate truth. No symphony essence can be found. Ancient teaching makes this precise in the Milinda Panha, the questions of Milinda. King Milinda meets the Buddhist monk Nagasena. The king arrives in a chariot. Nagasena asks, "Where is the chariot?" King points, "There, what I arrived in." Nagasena begins questioning. Is the chariot the wheels? No. Is it the axle? No. The frame? No. The seat? No. Then is it all these parts together? Well, yes. The chariot is all the parts working together. But I've examined all the parts. I don't find chariot anywhere. Remove the wheels. Is it still a chariot? Remove the axle. Is it still a chariot? Take apart every piece. Where is the chariot? The king sees it. The chariot is a concept, a useful designation, applied to parts arranged in particular way. Conventional truth. Chariots exist. You can ride them. They function. Ultimate truth. No chariot essence exists. Only parts mistaken for a thing. Similarly, you are a concept applied to 5 processes. Conventional truth. You exist. You function. You answer to your name. Ultimate truth. Examine the aggregates. No you can be found. 5 processes, mistaken for a person. Now people hear this and panic. If there's no self, then nothing matters. Morality disappears. Life becomes meaningless. No, understanding this doesn't make you disappear. You still function, still live, still make choices. The difference? No rigid identification, no desperate clinging, no existential defense. Freedom from the tyranny of me and mine. And this isn't nihilism. Actions still have consequences. Karma still operates. Morality still matters. This is recognizing the process of causation without needing a permanent agent. Let's revisit the 3 characteristics applied to aggregates. We explored these in depth in our 4 Noble Truths video, but now you can see how they directly relate to the aggregates. Impermanence, anicca. All 5 aggregates constantly changing. Form ages, cells die, body transforms. Feelings arise and pass, moment to moment, never the same twice. Perceptions shift with new information, new contexts, new conditions. Formations strengthen and weaken. Patterns change. Personality evolves. Consciousness flickers on and off, dependent on conditions. Never permanent. Nothing stable, nothing fixed, nothing to stand on. Suffering, dukkha. Clinging to changing aggregates creates pain. Try to hold on to youth, clinging to form, suffering when it changes. Chase pleasant feelings, clinging to Vedana, suffering when they pass. Defend your perspective, clinging to perception, suffering when challenged. Resist personality change, clinging to formations, suffering when they shift. Fear loss of consciousness, clinging to vijnana, suffering facing death. All doomed to fail because aggregates are impermanent, like grasping water. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it escapes. Not self anatta. No permanent essence in any aggregate. Form is not self. You can't control when it ages, when it hurts, when it dies. Feeling is not self. Pleasant and unpleasant arise uninvited, unwanted. Perception is not self. You can't choose what you perceive. Interpretations happen automatically. Formations are not self. Habits and reactions arise from conditions, not choice. Consciousness is not self. Awareness depends on conditions, disappears without them. If any aggregate were truly you, you would have total control, but you don't. They happen according to conditions, according to causes. What changes when you see this clearly? Everything, though not in the way you expect. The world doesn't vanish. You still wake up, work, love, and lose. But something underneath loosen, the sense of ownership fades. The need to defend yourself softens because there's no solid self left to protect. Compassion starts to bloom on its own. You see others not as fixed enemies or allies, but as shifting processes, caught in the same illusion as you. Their anger becomes conditioning, their cruelty becomes pain, and suddenly you can understand them. Anxiety loosens its grip. Without a permanent you to guard, the future loses its fangs. The person who worries today won't even exist when tomorrow arrives. Shame too begins to fade. The one who made mistakes is gone, replaced by new aggregates, new conditions, a new moment. You can learn from the past without being chained to it, and comparison it starts to dissolve. Temporary patterns measuring themselves against other temporary patterns. All of it seen for what it is, a game with no real players. Freedom doesn't arrive with thunder. It arrives quietly as the walls of me begin to crumble, and what's left is space, open, fluid, unafraid. And from that quiet space, a deeper understanding emerges, the one Buddha called the middle way. The paradox Buddha taught, two truths, both valid, both necessary. This two truths lens is a later analytic frame in the tradition, but it captures what the early discourses point toward. Conventional truth, the self functions, you still answer to your name, pay your bills, maintain relationships, function in society. This isn't denied, isn't eliminated, isn't transcended. It's necessary for living. Ultimate truth, no inherent self exists. Upon investigation, no permanent essence found. Processes without an owner, events without an experiencer at the core. Living skillfully means holding both truths simultaneously. Use conventional self when useful. I'll meet you at 3. I prefer this. I need help. Remember ultimate truth when suffering arises. This isn't happening to a permanent me. Don't cling to either extreme. This isn't nihilism. It's not that nothing exists or nothing matters, and it isn't eternalism. It's not that you're some unchanging soul watching from above. It's the middle way, where life still functions, yet nothing in it stands alone. You've spent your whole life defending, improving, worrying about something that was never there. Billions of dollars spent on self-improvement, protecting the self, perfecting the self. Countless hours, infinite anxiety, desperate striving, all protecting an illusion. 5 processes, mistaken for a person, a collection of temporary events, mistaken for a permanent entity. What happens when the mistake is seen? The processes continue. Form still functions, feelings still arise, perceptions still interpret, formations still act, consciousness still appears. Nothing stops. But the suffering ends because suffering requires someone to suffer. And when you look for that someone, 5 aggregates. Nothing more. Let that truth settle. But this understanding, and as clear as it might seem at this moment, is easy to distort. Before we conclude, 3 mistakes people make with aggregates. People often misunderstand this teaching in 3 ways. The first mistake, thinking I'm the aggregates combined. But no, the aggregates are processes. Even their sum doesn't create a self. Just as a chariot isn't the parts bolted together, it's a convenient name for parts arranged in a certain way. The second mistake, trying to get rid of the aggregates, you can't. They'll continue until the body dies. The point isn't to destroy them, it's to see them clearly. Form will age, feelings will rise and fade, perceptions will shift, formations will unfold, consciousness will appear and disappear. All of it continues. What ends is the delusion of ownership. And the third mistake, understanding the teaching only with the mind. This isn't something to believe, it's something to see, not a philosophy to think about, but a truth to observe directly. Now, what about rebirth? If there's no self, what is it that continues? One question remains, the question that troubled the 5 ascetics that day at Deer Park. The question that's troubled seekers for 2,500 years. If there's no self, who gets enlightened? If there's no self, who experiences nirvana? The cessation of suffering through release from identifying with aggregates. If there's no self, who is practicing meditation at this moment? And Buddha's response, and the question itself, is the problem. You're still assuming a who that needs to be found. You're still looking for an entity, a thing, a permanent experiencer. That's the trap. Enlightenment isn't someone achieving something, it's seeing through the illusion that there was ever someone to enlighten. The aggregates continue, functioning, arising, and passing. But the delusion of ownership dissolves. Processes happening. No one claiming them as mine. Remember our video on the 14 questions Buddha refused to answer, questions about the self after death, whether the self exists, what the self is. Buddha refused to answer, not because he didn't know, because the questions assume what needs to be investigated. They assume a self exists, and ask questions about it. Like asking, what color is the dragon in your garage? The question assumes a dragon exists. Before answering, what color? First check, is there a dragon? Similarly, before asking, what happens to the self after death? First check, is there a self? Look closely, examine the aggregates, search thoroughly. Where is this self? Zen masters make this direct. Student asks, who am I? Master responds, show me this eye that's asking. Student looks, searches, tries to find the questioner, can't find it. Master asks, where did it go? In the looking, the question dissolves, no one there to find, no one looking. Looking happening, question appearing, answer arising, all processes, no person. What about rebirth? If there's no self, what rebirths? The aggregates. Momentum without carrier. In the Milindapanya, Nagasena uses the metaphor of the flame. One candle lights another. Is it the same flame? No. Different flame. Is it a different flame? No. Causally connected. Not the same, not different. Continuity without identity. The karmic formations from this life condition the arising of new aggregates in the next. No soul travels. No person reincarnates. 5 aggregates dissolve. 5 new aggregates arise, conditioned by the karma of the old. This is rebirth without a self. So the practical path forward. Don't believe this intellectually. Don't accept it as philosophy. Don't treat it as interesting theory. Investigate directly. Meditation isn't relaxation, isn't stress relief, isn't self-improvement. It's investigation, direct observation, seeing for yourself. Here's how to practice with the aggregates. This is the actual practice, the direct investigation Buddha taught. Sit comfortably and close your eyes. Start with form. Notice sensations, pressure where you sit, temperature of air, tingling in hands. Don't get caught in conceptual elaboration. Simply observe. Silently note, this is form. Ask yourself, is this me? Is this mine? Is this myself? Then shift to consciousness. Notice awareness itself, knowing appearing. Note, this is vijnana. Ask again, is this me? Is this mine? Is this myself? Now ask, where am I in all this? Which aggregate is me? Look, search, investigate. Can you find the you? Understanding the aggregates doesn't end practice, it begins practice. You don't see through the illusion once and achieve permanent enlightenment. The aggregates keep arising, keep creating subtle sense of self. The difference is that each time you look, the illusion weakens. Each time you see clearly, identification softens. Little by little, suffering loses its foundation. This isn't cold, it's liberating. It's seeing clearly, responding wisely, suffering less. The final twist. What if the biggest obstacle to happiness is believing you exist as a separate, permanent self? What if all suffering stems from defending and improving something that isn't there? Liberation doesn't require becoming someone better. It requires seeing through the illusion of being someone at all. All 5 aggregates continued after Buddha's enlightenment. Form aged. Feelings arose. Perceptions occurred. Formations manifested. Consciousness appeared. Nothing stopped. Nothing disappeared. The difference, no delusion of ownership, no one claiming these processes as mine, no one suffering over their changes, processes happening, no one there, events arising, no experiencer at the core, life living itself, no liver. What remains when the illusion ends? Don't take our word for it. Don't believe us. Don't accept this teaching. Investigate. Look directly, examine closely, see for yourself. The answer can't be given, only discovered. This teaching connects to everything else Buddha taught, the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, dependent origination, karma, nirvana, all pointing to the same truth, not self. The 5 aggregates aren't a theory to believe, they're a map for direct investigation. At this moment, pause. Which aggregate is active? Form, feeling, perception, formation, consciousness? Can you find a you separate from these processes? Remember when we started? Touch your face, that sensation. Now you know. Form aggregate. Feeling aggregate arising. Perception labeling. Formations reacting. Consciousness knowing. 5 processes. No owner. The certainty that someone is there, constructed, always was. If this video shifted your understanding of who you are, share it. Share it with someone ready for that shift, someone asking the big questions, someone ready to look directly. Subscribe for more deep dives into Buddhist wisdom that challenges everything you thought you knew. Hit that bell, because we're going deeper. Until then, observe the processes, question the observer, and remember, you're not what you think you are. You're not even the one thinking. 5 processes, dancing together, creating the appearance of a person. And when you see through it, really see through it, not intellectually, but experientially, everything changes. Not because you've become someone new, but because you've seen through someone who was never there. The aggregates continue, but the suffering, the desperate clinging, the existential anxiety, all based on a case of mistaken identity. And mistakes, once seen, lose their power. The Buddha ended that first teaching at Deer Park. Tradition tells us the 5 ascetics sat stunned. Everything they thought they knew dissolved. Everything they thought they were revealed as illusion. And in that moment, they saw, not with belief, with direct perception. The same seeing is available to you, not someday. Now. The aggregates are arising and passing at this moment. Look closely. The you that's looking is another process all the way down, no ground to stand on. And in that groundlessness, you discover there was never a self to lose, only freedom to be lived.